With 23 races on the calendar, the 2022 Formula One season is set to be the longest of all time. This means less time between races to recover and train, and more time behind the wheel, making this season one of the most physically demanding in recent F1 history. Diet is one aspect of an F1's driver's routine that has a significant impact on their performance, and we've seen drivers become more aware of their nutritional needs as time has progressed. So, let's take a look at something that is rarely discussed: an F1's driver's diet. Driving an F1 car is a physically demanding sport, full stop. Consider braking. For the Rivazza corner in Imola, the driver must apply approximately 140 kilos of pressure to the pedal. The cars will pass through that corner 63 times during the race, which is the equivalent of lifting around 9 tons on the leg press machine for Rivazza. And there are 7 other braking points around the track. During the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, the driver is expected to apply a total load of around 60 tons. Of course, this is only one of the areas of effort. Modern F1 cars regularly subject the driver to 5 to 6 Gs of force, putting strain on their neck and core muscles. It's also a very hot place to work, with drivers losing a significant portion of their body weight, with numbers similar to what an elite marathon runner goes through. Pair that with the fact that F1 drivers must keep their weight under control to stay under the weight limit, it's easy to see why their diet is so important. Earlier this season, for example, soon-to-be world champion Max Verstappen discussed the importance of adhering to a strict diet. McLaren driver Daniel Ricciardo explained the stresses that drivers face over the course of a weekend, emphasizing the importance of diet and recovery. He also discussed other challenges facing drivers throughout a weekend, such as media appearances and setup work, which he described as a mental drain throughout the weekend. The biggest thing I've gained is wisdom, and at my age knowing the value of recovery. The racing, especially in Formula One, is physically demanding and exhausting, but it's also everything else that comes with it as well. It's not like we just wake up on Sunday and drive for 2 hours and go home. Our race weekends sometimes span across 5 days. Whether you're speaking with engineers, media, we're constantly on. Even our mental energy gets zapped. Sunday, when we're already a little bit drained, we have to put on our best physical performance of the weekend. With diet, you want to try and eat as clean as you can to refuel, get the calories back into your body, and catch up on some rest. Those are the 2 biggest things that have helped me out and helped me to understand what's needed to let my body be in the best shape. Needless to say, keeping your body in peak condition is critical, and for Daniel Ricciardo, re-evaluating his diet was a big part of that. The Formula One driver explains that, while he's always eaten well and has a pretty quick metabolism, he's focused more on a balanced, high-protein diet for endurance. Balance is the first thing that comes to mind. I've certainly experimented over the years, but I function best with balance. Obviously, with the training we do, protein's important, but I think also we need the carbs for a bit of extra energy, and we need fats as well for that more sustained fuel and not just to wither away. So I look for balance, and obviously, I mean flavor. I think fortunately I still have a pretty fast metabolism, so I can get away with a little extra flavor. Aside from the required vitamins and minerals, F1 drivers must consume the proper macronutrient balance. Macronutrients are the 3 key puzzle pieces in everyone's diet: proteins, fat, and carbohydrates. Proteins, in a nutshell, maintain and build muscle. They're critical for athletes to improve their condition after training and to reduce the time required to recover between sessions. Carbohydrates, on the other hand, have the primary function of providing athletes with the energy they require during the race weekend. Carbohydrates come in a variety of shapes, but for practical purposes, we divide them into 2 categories: slow and fast. Slow carbs, as the name implies, provides energy to the body gradually. Fast carbs release energy at a much faster rate and are quickly used up. Last but not least, fats are the primary energy storage medium in the body, but more importantly, they serve as one of the structural building blocks of the body, transport vitamins, and participate in vital physiological processes. Getting the right amount of fats in the diet is an important but often overlooked aspect of an athlete's diet. The typical diet of F1 drivers can vary greatly, which is understandable given that they come from all over the world. They do, however, share similarities in the balance of the aforementioned nutrients. Let's look at what a driver might eat on a race weekend. Drivers will eat slow carbs for breakfast to provide them with energy throughout the morning. Porridge, fruits and vegetables, and low-sugar cereals are a few examples. Their breakfast will also include some proteins and fats, which will typically come from foods such as eggs, dairy, and possibly a small amount of meat. The meal shouldn't be too filling, however, as drivers need to feel ready to hop in the car. Drivers will typically eat more proteins and fats for lunch in order to recover. Drivers will eat poultry or fish for this meal. Red meat is typically avoided due to its higher fat content, which makes it more likely to cause stomach issues. Carbohydrates are not forgotten, so vegetables and some pasta or rice will accompany the meat. Dinner is possibly the most important meal because it comes before sleep. Most muscle repair and growth occurs during sleep as hormones are released and the body and brain recover from a long day's work. This is the time for drivers to increase their protein intake, lean meats such as chicken or fish being a popular choice. Some drivers even like to splurge on this meal with steaks and desserts, not uncommon even during weekends. Another key area that drivers focus on is hydration. During a typical 1.5 hour race, an F1 driver is expected to lose about 2 to 3 liters of water through sweat. This is a figure comparable to what marathon runners lose in a race, so yeah, it's a lot. Thus, a bottle of water will never be far away. However, not all drivers adhere to the same principles. Lewis Hamilton switched to a vegan diet in 2017 after deciding to avoid all animal-based products. According to the 7-time world champion, it's made him more alert and faster to recover from races. However, some experts believe that going vegan can actually be detrimental to athletic performance, so the science is debatable. Max Verstappen is another driver who has spoken out about the importance of diet, as well as how his diet changes depending on the conditions. People can't imagine the stress the body suffers during a Grand Prix. The only way to be fit to drive an F1 car is by driving an F1 car. We put our bodies through a lot of strain in F1. We race at 200 miles per hour, we experience high levels of G-force, and we're sat in the same position for hours. My diet is also carefully managed as body weight is very important in racing, so I'm always making sure I'm eating plenty, because it's such a physically demanding sport, but being careful about what I'm eating. My diet also changes depending on where I'm racing and the weather conditions. For example, in humid weather, I burn so many calories when I'm on the track. But one thing is for sure, the days of Formula 1 drivers smoking cigars and drinking champagne before races are clearly over. Much to the chagrin of fans who remember the days of drivers being so tired they collapse, like Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell did in the 1980s. Franz Tost, team principal of Scuderia Alpha Tauri, believes that the current generation is the fittest in F1 history due to years spent in karting and junior single-seater racing, as well as a modern focus on diet, nutrition, and physical preparation. Of course, you cannot compare this time with, let me say, 20 or 30 years ago when Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell or whoever collapsed after a race. They never saw a fitness center from the inside, and some of them were smoking as well, and in former days, I remember that some cars didn't finish the race and they talked about gearbox problems. Hey, they were smoking beforehand and they were not fit enough to finish the race, and then they put it in any gear so that the car stopped. They weren't fit enough. This is the reality. Many criticize the current state of F1 as being physically too easy. Tost, on the other hand, believes that F1 fans should be pleased with the current level of skill. Nowadays, we have really good drivers in Formula 1, therefore you don't see accidents, which on one side is very good, but from the entertaining point of view is boring. Friends of mine say you don't even see a crash after the start in the first corner because they all managed to do it. It's because the driving level is very high. I think the highest we've ever seen in Formula 1, and this we should continue. This has nothing to do only with Formula 1. This is in all other sports as well, in skiing and so on. I think we should be happy to see these drivers. As cars become faster and greater attention is placed on driver preparation, the life of a Formula 1 driver is no longer all roses. Drivers must be cautious of what they put into their bodies in order to perform at their best, whether it's during the off-season or a race weekend. Thank you for tuning in. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos. Please share your ideas in the comments area below. What effect do you believe the length of the 2022 season will have on drivers? Are today's Formula 1 cars too easy to drive? Tell us in the comment section.